Yes, guys, I'm inside. Welcome to Cardiff City World. Welcome to the breakdown live on a Sunday evening. And I'm sure we'll find something to talk about. I'm not sure it's going to be particularly positive, but we're gonna have a look and we're gonna have a deep dive into it. Obviously, Cardiff City lost yesterday to Stoke in another cup final, another must-win game. But it's the performance, I think, which is the most concerning. I think that's fair to say. And because I've been under the weather, and also because he was very keen to have a chat about Cardiff, I'm delighted to be joined by Jamie Anderson, who's on his way back from the stadium. He's been walking since yesterday. How are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. To be fair, I just watched. I do apologise for the background sound. Just watched the ladies win the trophy. It was nice. Actually, there was 5 goals scored, with 3 of them being a Cardiff goals. So again, it's nice to see someone win, as someone said to me upside. But no, again, Si, I think it's a case of a weekend, isn't it? Where do we go? And another cup final, as the analogy is, and unfortunately, another cup final that we've dropped. And I don't know how to describe it. Someone said to me they feel soulless coming out of the stadium yesterday. They felt they didn't know how to feel, which I think probably sums up maybe how our fans are feeling generally.
Yeah, mate. It was, I think, like yesterday after the game, it was lost for words. Really, it was so difficult to put into words like how bad and toothless that performance was. Like, we had one clear-cut chance, which is the Isaac Davis one, and I saw some people criticising him for that. It goes at him at such speed and bounces up at him. It wasn't as easy as it looks, but you got to take them, obviously. But like, to be honest with you, if you're looking for words to describe Cardiff, I just think broken is the most appropriate one, mate. From top to bottom, it's just broken.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think, like you said, is you want to be sort of together. You want to be in a place where you think you're fighting, but it appears there's a lack of fight. And it's a bit hard to digest, I suppose, because when you're a big club like we are, and I know that analogy gets chucked around, you don't win games on paper. So you look at your experienced players in the side to hopefully give you some moments, some guidance. And it feels like at the minute, the word guidance, and there's no guidance. Is it coming from the top of the club? Is it coming from the sidelines? Is it coming on the pitch? Where's it coming from? Because, someone said we need a miracle. And again, 125th season, 125th year, we needed it to be a special year. And unfortunately, at the minute, as we've said on previous shows, it feels like it's not special. It's pretty damn the opposite.
Yeah, mate, it's like, do you know what's weird, right? Is at the start of the season, I was the most positive I've been for as long as I can remember going in. I thought the window, not only did we, and obviously a lot of it was based on Kanga being the striker that would be, get a couple of goals and stuff. He obviously had a spell to forget. But I thought the rest of the signings were quite astute. You had a bit of experience with Chambers. You had that sort of highly rated younger player in Alex Robertson. With some of the players we had and what Bullet had scored built, so you were thinking, that looks good. And we've just never recovered from that early, first 6 games, not scoring a goal, scoring 1 goal, having 1 point. And we've never recovered from that, even at the best points in Reese's reign. And really, it's only the first couple of games there was a reaction when he came in. And then we were absolutely god-awful over Christmas and coming into Christmas. And then post-Oxford until Leeds, we were good. Apart from that, it's been the same type of performance, the same thing all the time. And we lacking leaders is something we've talked about a lot. I think that's very clear to see. When Ramsey's not in the side, it seems like none of the players are talking to each other. It's quite incredible to watch,
Yeah, and again, Ramsey, Rowles, they're the most experienced probably players that we've got at our club that get our club. What is Cardiff City about? Hard work, determination, effort, application, all these things that us as fans can really get behind. You know, we've discussed about the atmosphere in the stadium, and I think for the vast majority of that game yesterday, you know, albeit with a stop and start nature of it, I think the fans were trying their hardest to get behind the team to get something. But again, someone said to me, the product on the pitch is not good enough, and you can't argue with that point. You know, Isaac Davis's chance, like you mentioned, it's you know, people say the open goal and stuff, but it's come at such speed that, you know, if you put too much on it, almost you get too much of a contact, it's gone over, and I think that's what's happened. But that was probably the only real chance that we had, and again, it is. This is why we wonder, where are we going to get our points from if we're not creating chances and we're still conceding the silly goals that we keep conceding? Where's this miracle going to come from? And we're quite lucky, you could probably say, that we're still only 1 point off it.
Yeah.
Because you know, I feel like we're a cat. We've got so many bloody lives that, you know, eventually it's gonna, you know, it's gonna run out, isn't it? Our luck, so to say.
I mean, what's mad is that we've been so bad this year, but we're still not down. That is incredible to really feel. And I think the strange thing is, we went through a period where we kept making those defensive mistakes
Yep.
and conceded when we were on top a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And then, but at that point, we were creating a lot of chances. We just weren't really scoring them, or we weren't scoring as many as we should. And then now it's kind of flipped where we're almost not creating anything. But defensively, I do think we look a bit better. Like I know it's harsh, but with the goal yesterday, I thought the goal was really, it was unlucky because it's a handball and, you know, it comes off Fish then after quite a good save. But ultimately, those are the things which go against you. You know, when we got relegated from the Premier League, mate, we had the Chelsea goal, which was 5 yards offside. Like, when you're down there, things will go against you. And my worry is, I look at those players yesterday, and there's a few of them who look frightened to take a risk and frightened to just play off. Like, one of my pet peeves with modern day football is that it's so robotic anyway. Like, you don't just see players just play off instinct, and, you know, they're coming off the bench, they got all these clipboards and spreadsheets and all, you know, or do this, go there, if this happens, go here. And you don't see players who are just going to get hold of a game and drive us on. You know, back in the day, like, you know, how many times did Wits just produce a bit of magic out of the blue, you know, just to get something? And we've got players who are capable of that, but they're almost too afraid to give the ball away. So they go backwards, they go sideways, they keep possession. I'd rather sometimes see us lose possession, but just try and take a risk, do something different.
It was crazy though yesterday, Si, because I think one thing I've been looking at, and a few people are saying about the overlapping wingers and the left back, why play, you know, Dowda, we know he gets up and down the line, and yesterday I think there was 3 or 4 occasions that he'd run round the defender, created that 2-on-1, but we then ignored it almost, and we went back inside, ran into a bit of trouble, and then proceeded to play back to Chambers and go across again. And I'm thinking, when you get a bit of momentum or a bit of transition, you need to keep it going, if that makes sense. And then it just feels like then you get a fan's reaction of, oh no, we've gone back, we've lost it. And naturally players are going to feel it. But I just don't understand where we're going to get goals from if we're not taking the shots when they come, if we're not crossing the ball in. I do apologise, by the way, that all this background noise, it probably adds a bit of theatrics to it.
Yeah, it's all good.
But it's a worrying time, Si. And again, this is not, in my opinion, but this season, this is a 3 out of 4, our last 4 seasons. We've been around this precarious position, and we have no ace card to play. We have no points deductions for people. We have no, sort of helplines to get us out of it. And we're in it because we continue to make the same mistakes week in, week out.
Yeah. Right. Just before we dig into some of the bits and pieces around it, I wanted to say, do you know what's mad, right? Is in amongst how depressing it is and how bad it's been and how bad it feels still, I look at it and I think, do you know what? If we could stay up and we can evolve the squad a little bit, add some, some players that we need, some experience, some quality, I look at it and I think, do you know what? I would like to see a full season of, a Salic, some of the other people like Isaac Davis looks so fit. I was gutted to see him not start again, and I don't really get it. He's the one player we got who's got that electric pace, and you just chuck him on the bench and go bring him on when it's too late. But like, there's still that bit of optimism in me, and I don't know whether that's just blind loyalty to Cardiff or the fact that Salah just, caught the eye a little bit. But I just think, like, even now, we can just find a way to stay up. There's still a basis there to build around if you get the right manager, coaches, etc. Because look, I get it, right? People are blaming Risa and stuff like that, and he's got to take responsibility. He's had 36 games in charge. He'll have had 40 by the end of the season, so it's on him as much as it is, every other person, the players, etc. But as I said, the day he got appointed till the summer, unless they give him an experienced coach and they give him a full coaching staff, he's set up to fail. And he's set up that if we go down, they can kind of push all the blame onto him instead of where it should be directed, which is at the top of the club, because they're the ones who have made or created the situation that we're in. And like you say, it's not just this season. It's not like we're suddenly gone from 12th to the relegation battle. It's like, oh my God, what's happened? Like, this has been coming for a long time, and they have not addressed the issues. If you don't address the issues, you're just doing the same thing over and over again. And like, it's infuriating to see, because I think you, me, every man and their dog can see, away from the football pitch, we can see the issues that need to be addressed off the pitch to then enable the club to go on the pitch and take it forward. But, it is what it is. I just think, Reece is the scapegoat, isn't he? But he's not the only one who's at fault.
No, you're spot on. The big thing for me is accountability. We are in this together. Our supposed hashtag for our club is City has won. So, you've got to experience the lows to enjoy the highs, in my opinion. I do genuinely worry for us as a club that we are going down the creek, so to say, without a paddle. Like, what's our direction? I couldn't tell you myself. I think a lot of people couldn't tell you what our plan is. So if we were to go down the precarious position in League One, what's the optimism to get us back up? These are all questions that fans are genuinely concerned with. And I think that impacts when we're in the stadium, when we're in this position, we're looking at the scores around us, thinking, oh, here we go. Plymouth have beat Sheffield United and stuff like that. And it doesn't help, Si. And I think maybe the players are feeling that added pressure. But if they're professionals, naturally, they need to take accountability. They need to get stuck in, and they really, really need to start. I'm trying to think, improving, if that makes sense. Like, this isn't just a you or I. This is everybody. This is going to affect the cleaners. This is going to affect the club. This is going to affect everyone else, and it is a scary position to be in.
Yeah, I mean, this is what pisses me off a bit. It's like, you've got, whether it's Omar Issa, whether it's the players, like, they're all kind of. It looks like there's a bit of friction there between everyone. They're all arguing amongst themselves, etc. But like, when where if we go down, it's not them who, like, Risa will probably go, or he might not. But it's not the players who will get sacked. It's the day-to-day staff who will get sacked and made redundant, because they'll need to save money in this. And I think I've seen a few posts today of people going, "Oh, look, at least doing a bit of tour of League One and away grounds, that'll be fun." And I know it's people like tongue-in-cheek trying to be optimistic, but I think what people need to realise is, if we go down, the likelihood of us keeping Salic, Ruben, Alex Robertson, Will Fish, Joel Bagan, basically anyone under 25 who's any good, is going to be gone. And they'll go for sweet FA as well, because the club will have a fire sale. And they're the most valuable players, ultimately. And I think people will lose their jobs. We will get in a manager who, let's just say that people won't be impressed with. And it's frightening that this has got to this point and no one has addressed it. I was told, mate, in January, that if it got to a point where it looked like we were going to be in a real relegation battle, that Tan would pull the trigger and get an experienced manager in. And I was almost like promised it. Like, I was told, if it gets to the point where it looks like we're going to be in a bit of trouble, he'll pull the trigger because he won't risk it. And I was like, I sent the same guy a message a couple of weeks back, and I said, so, question mark. And then there's been points since December where it seemed very much like the word on the street, if you like they were going to make a change. And it just seems that every time they've gone to do it, the owner is the one who's pulled back from it. And ultimately, yes, you can blame Reese, yes, you can blame the board, yes, you can blame this, that, and the other players. I think we've got to accept some blame. But ultimately, it comes down to one man's decision-making. And is he interested, ultimately? Because if he gets the majority of his investment back from the Salah case, does he really care whether we go down or stay up? Does he really care if we win football matches? Does he care if we're financially stable? I'm not so sure anymore, mate, because for someone who wasn't going to risk getting relegated, we got 4 games left. And nothing's changed. And I mean that in every sense of the word. Nothing has changed since that Leeds game to today. Nothing has changed. You still there, mate, or not?
Yeah, go on. No, sorry. No,
Yeah,
you're right. To just touch upon what you said, sorry about that, is, again, it does ask these questions, isn't it? And I think this is where frustration comes from, Si. If we knew the answer, if we knew the plan, then we could probably almost take the, swallow the pill as such, is we could almost understand. But what is the plan? What is the idea? What is it we're trying to achieve? What constitutes success? Because I think we've all said this. What sort of business person in any day life would see a product that we are producing now, and with the money that is going into the club or how much you're outgoing, whatever it may be, and define this as okay? You've alluded to there, if they almost pressed the panic button. Now, Vincent in years gone by has pressed it probably when we weren't as bad as we are now. And that's not a direct dig at Omar, because I think Omar's a lovely guy, and I think, and again, do I think he's had the support that he needed? Probably not. He probably should have had it quicker and maybe a bit more experience. But that's if, buts and maybes. We're in the position now where we've got 4 games left. And I'm not going to say 4 cup finals, because we've been hearing cup finals and all these analogies for, well, how long now? The last probably 6 games. I just think we're at the minute, we're in a perilous position where you look at the games we've got coming up. The only game we would say on paper as such to win is Oxford. You wouldn't fancy yourself away at Norwich last game of the season. You wouldn't fancy us probably against West Brom. And when you're not creating chances, when you're not looking like a side that is confident, all these negative sort of, narratives and stuff like that, they start adding pressure. And at the minute, I think the pressure is probably too much for a lot of people to handle. I mean, myself, I go into the games, I try to be optimistic, believe it or not. I try and, I'll sing and kick and head balls for 90 odd minutes and whatever. But the realization is we're still in the drop zone, and we need a miracle to get us out of it.
Yeah. And I mean, let's sort of move on a little bit in terms of same subject but different angle. Where do you stand on like the playing squad at the moment? Because I see some people saying, on paper this is a good squad, that a good manager would be getting more out of them, and then on the other hand, I see people saying it's just not good enough. And then there's also a third element who say it's a good squad, but there's not enough experience down the spine to really help the young players when they're in these difficult moments and they're feeling the pressure. Like, where do you stand with it, just the general sort of squad in terms of the quality and that?
I think there's individual quality. I don't think at the minute we've seen enough, especially continuity in terms of that coming together as a group. I think there's moments of quality from individuals, like I said, like an Alves or what have you. But if individual quality doesn't help if you're, say, 3 or 4 other players aren't doing well enough and you don't want to carry players. I've always said this. We've gone into a season where we've probably got not enough depth in defensive areas, in my opinion, resulting in Callum O'Dowda in left-back position, Andy Winnamote in a right-back position. Eventually, you're going to get exposed for people not playing in natural positions, and they're trying their hardest. I'm not going to dispute that. But sides are very clever. They go down they split our centre halves, they cut down the channels. And then when we concede, it seems like our heads drop a little bit And then I'm just thinking, right, it's going to take a 1-0. And yes, they proved that. Mark Robbins said himself, didn't he? He said it was a very scrappy game. We've all played 3 games in a space of 7 days, so you're not going to be at your best. But it's just, I don't know, something not right with with the team. Maybe we're leaking too many goals and we didn't do enough defensively to sign players. Wilfish is very young. I don't think that helps. He's still learning. But I think we need a bit more experience. I think we probably caught in between going, wanting to go younger and then also kind of, having that loophole, the 26, 27-year-old players that we
Yeah,
need.
I
We've got
don't think it's
an imbalance.
yeah, I don't think we're saying you need like a couple of 30-year-olds. We've got that in Ramsey and Wolves. What we need is championship experience, who have felt the pressure of playoffs and relegation and played in those big pressure games. Because we have got a lot of players who are sort of 25 and under. A lot of people like Will Alves are playing first team football for the first time, really. So it's a big ask and it's a lot of pressure. In terms of Omar Rees's selection yesterday, we'll start with the first 11 and then go with the subs. Like, what did you make of what he did and how he tried to set the team up yesterday? Because I think one thing you can say is he did try to go for it. Like, he is trying to make changes with his subs and the way he's setting up. But I feel like the substitutions particularly is like, it gets to a point where he's just throwing on every attacking player we've got and you just lose all the balance and the shape and there's no structure to it. But like the 11 that he named yesterday, was there anyone who you were like, oh, I wish he was playing?
I mean, I like Turnbull. I think for me, maybe having a 2 sort of possession-minded midfielders in there helps link up with strikers and brings the forward players into the action. But I suppose with a defensive record like ours, having 2 almost centre midfielders who are attacking, we're almost neglecting the defensive side of it. And I think maybe that plays on his mind. I don't know. The substitution that got a lot of people questioning was why, like, what was Turnbull's role yesterday?
Yeah.
But again, all these substitutions and starting 11, they're always over analysed or scrutinised for a better word, maybe because of the position that we're in, and it does feel very poor that we're in this position, and we're putting if buts maybes, aren't we? We're right. Can he do a good job? Like, can Yaku finish off? Like he did against Preston. We need a goal, so let's bring Yaku on. That's no disrespect to Yaku by any stage, I mean, but it's a big ask, isn't it, in a massive game at home against a relegation rival to deliver. And again, it's added pressure. I don't think for 1 second that Omar's out to, like I see people, it's a big challenge. And I'm trying not to be all in on Omar or all against him, because I do believe that he's not had enough support at times. But when you're making changes, they've got to be impactful, and they're not. And I think yesterday we didn't get any better with the changes we made. I think we actually probably, I think the stop and start nature of the game yesterday didn't help by any means. But second half, I think we didn't come out fighting.
Yeah, I said to your brother actually at half time, I think it was. I said this second half has got to be like the start of the Swansea game. We got to be all over them like a rash, so they crumble under the pressure. And we just we've never replicated that period against the Jacks at our place and Bristol City just after half time was the 2 instances under Risa where we've pressed high, we've moved the ball quick, and we've just, for lack of a better term, blown teams away in like a 20-minute spell, taking our chances. We haven't been able to do that as a consistent thing. And look, I know, we could talk about for days now, should they make a change? Should they make a change? Ultimately, one man's going to decide it. And I just feel like we can't just keep going around in circles. But the one thing I would say on the change in manager now at this point is at the moment, it does feel like every week is the same. So if you do change it, like I've seen some people say Warnock, I've seen some people just give it to Ramsey till the end of the season, just for something different. But what I would say is if you do change it, what's the worst that can happen is we go down. Well, we're going down anyway at the moment without a fight. So is it worth, like, where do you stand on that? Because I think leaving it this late is a bit ludicrous, but
Yeah, I echo that. I think 4 games, like, it's a big ask. I mean, if you're going to make a change, you're banking on the fact that you're only 1 point probably off relegation,
Yeah.
getting out of it. So you're almost banking on the fact that someone's going to come in and make an instant change, and all of a sudden we're going to jump up in the league. That's a massive gamble. I don't know gambling, man, but I just think that Tan is, from what we know from experience, he's very stubborn in his ways, isn't he? And I think he maybe likes the way that Omer is, maybe likes the way that Omer conducts himself. I don't know, but ultimately, he's kept him, and if we go down, that's on, in my opinion, that's on Tan, isn't it? He's the one that's making the decision. If you're led to believe that Mehmet, like I think Paula Bantano has tweeted this morning, that various pathways were explored at various points in this season with Neil Warnock and other people. Well, at the end of the day, the man who's paying the bills, so to say, has decided that he's going to stay with the man that we currently have. That's not Omer's fault. At the end of the day, it's his job. He's not going to advocate for himself losing a job by any stretch of the means. But again, will Tan be here to pick up the pieces that, if we do get relegated, that are going to be, let's be brutally honest, our club will be in a position of non-healthiness. It's not going to be healthy. It's going to be like questions unanswered. Where do we go? Who's got a job? Who hasn't got a job? And there'll be so much more questions need answering than anything else. And my worry is, we Birmingham City this time last year probably knew they were getting relegated. They had an owner that was accepting it and said, listen, we go down, we've got a plan. If we go down, do I genuinely feel there's a plan in place? Honestly, I can't. I don't think there is. And it seems very short focused. But at the end of the day, like we said, ultimately, you reap what you sow. And if you're going to say something and you're going to do something, then you've got to live by that sword. And again, we'll be behind Rizza. We're all behind him in terms of the team. We want the team to do well. It's not like we're anti this, anti that. But we want the teams to do well, but they need to start performing ASAP.
Yeah, there's no excuses now. They've got to, and I mean, one of the things which does irritate me is that, some of these players, it's very clear, and I'm not going to dig out individuals, but, some of them would just think, in the summer, I'll just move to a different championship club. And that annoys me, because then you're just like, you're not even interested in fighting for today. You're already looking at where you're going to go in the summer if we go down. But that's beside the point. Steve just made a really good comment in the chat here, and he just basically says Cardiff are behind the times, and he mentions the fact that a lot of teams are more physical, more athletic, better fullbacks, etc. But my point for a while has been Cardiff are behind the times in almost every metric. We're about 5 years behind in how we use social media, how we use analysis, how we use AI and stats for analysis within studying and preparing for games. We're way behind in how players recover from injuries and stuff. Let alone, that's before you even get to the pitch. We're 5 years behind because the people who are at the top of the club aren't there day to day. And so they don't really see it, that it's fallen behind. But also, equally, because they're not there day to day, they've also got nothing to compare it to at other clubs. So they don't know that we're so far. We're so far behind the times, mate, in almost every metric, from on the field to off the field. And that's concerning to me, because when you've got, these businessmen who are successful in their individual businesses at the top of the club, but they can't see that the football club is almost falling apart at the seams because it's being neglected on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I mean, I was down there for the women's game there, and one of the chaps I know from who goes and watches the male team, he said, looking in the stadium, he was like, well, which stand might be closed next year? Like, what's it going to look like next year? And again, naturally, these negative mindsets or negative thoughts are creeping in because of the uncertainty. This is, again, I don't know. I'll be the first one to say, listen, I don't know what the old Division 4, the Division 4 was, and the days of Ninian Park, in those sort of days when we played Bury, etc., etc. But now in the 21st century, like you said, if we're so far behind on all these technological things and so on, it doesn't bode well. And again, what is the plan? How are we going to utilize if if it does go wrong? We should have a succession plan straight away, right? If that happens, we're doing this. If it does stay up, right, that's not good enough. How do we build? And again, there's probably more negative answers than positives. And again, it's like, who makes these decisions? Who is in charge of certain things? And again, you probably couldn't answer it, or you wouldn't get a proper answer. And I don't want to dig out certain people at clubs, because there are very good people at the club, but it just doesn't feel like it's consistently published that we're doing good things. But in a season that we're doing good things, on the pitch we're not.
Yeah, 100%, mate. You know, I spoke to someone who works for the EFL earlier, and they used exactly the same term that you just used, but they said Cardiff haven't had a succession plan for about 15 years. So most clubs, which are well run, will have a plan for, if this happens this year, this is what we will do. You know, if we finish in the top 10, these are the type of players. This is how much budget we'll have. You know, we're going to add to the X department and this and that. If we go down, then we're going to have to lose this much off the budget. We're going to have to probably look at these group of players, these group of managers, you know, whatever it may be. But they plan for almost every occurrence. You feel like Cardiff, well, I've been saying for bloody the last God knows how long, Cardiff City feel like they are very reactive, not proactive. We sack a manager and then go, right, who should we get in? Or we sell a player and go, right, who should we get in to sign for this person? Or we think, oh, we want to sign Kiefer Moore. But instead of speaking to his agent before Christmas, we wait until January the 1st to start negotiations. It's just a bit of a shambolic thing. Right, mate, just for this last second half hour, I do want to sort of focus a little bit more on the football side of it.
Yeah.
So to kick that off, I'm going to ask you this. Next game is another cup final.
Yeah.
What would your team be? Like, if you're the manager now, you know, assume that long-term injuries are the same, but the majority of the rest are available. What system? Who are you bringing in? Any drastic changes? Like, where would you like to see a bit of I say an improvement? We want improvement everywhere, but just in terms of where do you see some of the areas that are an issue?
I probably have to say we need to go for it. I mean, it sounds bad with a minus, was it 21 goal difference now? But if we go to Bramall Lane and we sit back for 90 whatever minutes it is, eventually Sheffield United are going to score. Most probably Kiefer Moore will do something. I don't know what the banker is for that, but you can bet your bottom dollar he probably will. I think we've just got to go a bit more attacking. I mean, again, I'm not discrediting certain players, but I'd love to see Callum O'Dowda as a left winger. I think his pace is frightening. I'd love to see that. Maybe let's explore having a different change of the midfield three, away from the defensive side of it, because I feel at times if we're playing Chambers alongside, say, I don't know, a Sivert, we're probably more set up to avoid being played through. And utilising a system where we can get the ball out wide, because I think we've got some frightening pace out wide, but we aren't really seeing it because we're probably playing back into the middle part of the park. Defensively, I don't think I'd make, well, apart from maybe putting Joe Bagan left back as opposed to O'Dowda and letting O'Dowda move further at the pitch. I'd keep the centre half partnership because I think that's half. I'll probably keep chopping and changing partnerships if it doesn't work. And at the top of pitch, why not put two big guys up there? Why not put Yaku Mate up there and get lump it up there if you've got to, get a free kick, get some territory. There's no right or wrong way to win a football match, in my opinion. Play, football's secondary. Let's just get a ball up there and let's actually try and put ourselves about.
Yeah, I think ultimately you just got to find a way to win, haven't you? For me, I think Will Fisher's been our best out-and-out defender in the last couple of months in terms of winning headers, putting his body on the line. And I'm not saying he's been perfect, but I just mean in terms of, that side of it. So I'd definitely keep him in there. I do like Joe Bagan alongside him, but I think he made that mistake and he seems to have been a bit shaky since, which is understandable. He's a young player. And I tend to agree with you, like get him at left back, O'Dowda at the left. I would like to see Isaac Davis in the side because I think the one thing teams don't want to do is play against pace. I thought we missed Manswerk yesterday, his ability to break up play, but also carry the ball. He's got an eye for a pass. And I think the way where we are now, where we have to win games, I really like Callum Chambers in midfield. But like you said, we can't really play the two of them because we've got to go for them. So we've got to go for it. So it's like, right, which one of them is going to play? And I think out of the two, Mansberg offers you a little bit more all around than maybe Chambers does. He's a bit more mobile. He's a bit more aggressive. He can carry the ball, but he can still do the other bits which you want. And I think ultimately, mate, you've got to try and get the players in who are going to create and score and do it. Our best period this year, in the reset, was when we had Turnbull and Robertson as a two, with Ruben in front and Tanner and whoever was playing on the other side. And I think that's the way to go, mate, is he'd almost say to Ruben, just go where you want to go, or whoever plays in the 10, just go. Don't worry about too much about the structure of it, and you've got to get back into me in midfield 3. Just go where you think you're going to get the ball in dangerous areas, because the wide players and the two midfielders are going to do the defensive work in terms of getting back. I would like to see the number 10 given the freedom to just go and be a bit, like a street footballer almost. Just go get on the ball and find little pockets and do something, because that's what you want your number 10 to do. Like, yes, you want everyone to defend and press and all the rest of it. But if your number 10 is constantly having to just drop back into the midfield to make a 3, he's not doing what you want him to do, which is create and score goals. So, for me, I think, Salic has got to play. I thought Keane looked a little bit tired yesterday, if I'm honest. But I will say, Keane Ashford and Will Alves were up against two very good fullbacks yesterday. The one part of that Stoke side that I thought was pretty good was the two fullbacks and the young centre-back, Phillips, I think it is.
Yeah.
I thought he was really good considering he's 19. But we didn't get close enough to Salic. Salic was so isolated in the first half. Like, he pulls up to him, he hold it up quite well, and Robinson was 5-10 yards away. I mean, how do you feel about Callum Robinson, right? Because I really like Callum Robinson as a footballer, and I think this year, I think he's had a really good attitude towards playing for Cardiff. But I think there's no denying, statistically, if you like, he's quite streaky, so he'll score like 5 or 6 goals, and then he won't do much for about, a period, and then he'll do it again. And in the period when he's not scoring, I'm not sure if other players offer maybe a little bit more, like on the ball and the link up and creating. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but would you agree with that, mate? Or because I thought he looked a bit rusty yesterday.
Well, I mean, yeah, and again, like you said, the key word there is probably streaky. I mean, Callum Robinson is, again, he's a proven goal scorer, isn't he? He is a good player, and a lot of the term on his day he probably gets brandished around. Maybe the predicament that we're in at the minute, where maybe we need a different type of player. We need someone that is probably, let's say, physically getting stuck in, putting himself around. Maybe that's not his game, and it probably isn't. I don't think many forwards have got that. But again, like, I think there's a very good player. At the end of the day, we've given him a 2-year contract for a reason. Most agree, most might not agree. But I think we've got to find a way, haven't we? And again, like I said earlier on, there's no right way to win a football game, in my opinion. That's only my opinion. But we need someone to have a streak, like you just said there, he's streaky. We need someone to have a good streak. I don't care if it comes off his toe, his head, whatever it may be. Callum Robinson, I think, can have moments of brilliance, but the ball needs to get there. And like you said, that's our problem at the minute. The ball isn't getting from the back. It's probably getting lost in centre of the park, and then it's not going up to the top of the park. And like you said, Yusuf Salek then, unfortunately, is isolated. He's coming deeper, which then, obviously, again, you're further away from the opposition goal, so you're limiting your chances. So with Callum Robinson, we all want him to do well. He is passionate about the club. I think his reaction yesterday when he left the stadium was one of frustration. And again, let's hope he can score some goals for us.
I think the interesting thing with Callum actually is pre-January he was playing up top on his own, and he's a different sort of striker to Salic in that when we've got Salic there, we're looking for him to link up the play with his back to goal and then get in the box effectively. Like, very basic, but that's generally the gist of it. Whereas Callum runs the channels, runs in behind. He can drop in, but he generally is looking to get in behind. So when he was playing up front with that midfield, for instance, that I mentioned earlier, that automatically creates space for a Ruben or a Turnbull or a Robertson to push into. And I wonder whether, as good as Salic has been, and this isn't a criticism of Salic, it's just a criticism or the nature of the player, I guess. We brought in a striker who we've desperately needed, like a big striker who could score goals, and Salic has been very, very good since he's come in. And I think if we can hold him in the summer, he'll be a cult hero. Like, I really do. I really like him. But that does have an effect on how the team plays, because you've got a different type of striker now to play off and to play with. So you haven't got Callum Robinson running the channels. So you haven't got that out ball either, as well as working it down the channels with some passing. You also haven't got that out ball in between the fullback and the centre back to push teams and turn teams around. So maybe there's something in that. I don't know.
It's tough because, you know, when you look now, obviously yesterday's gone. We've and as daft as it sounds me saying it, we've got to move on. Because if we dwell on it for too long, you know, let's be honest, there's not many positives. There's not much to probably talk about or look at. But going forward with Sheffield United, you know what you're going to get with them. At the minute, they're on a horrible run. They're trying to get, you know, automatic. But they've got some great individual players. The likes of Gustavo Hamer, sorry, I do apologise. You know, you've got individual players like him that if you give him those little pockets, he'll flourish in. So again, it's one of those catch-22s, isn't it? Are we gonna change it for our purpose and we're gonna control a game? Or are we trying to set up to almost frustrate the other team? And again, at the minute when your Deroider, you know, your confidence is at an all-time low as such. Every little decision you make is heightened, and it's not for the good. Like, you know, you see yesterday, some players possibly were taking the easier pass. Maybe they were going into trouble, turning into that space instead of being, like you said earlier, more creative, more open. But that's a natural thing, I think, when your confidence is low. And I'm not trying to excuse poor play by any means. I'm not trying to say that. I know they're professional footballers. I know you know, that's their career. But I just think that, again, like, your vision, almost, you do the easy out, you do the easy option at times, and again, we can't be doing that. We need to be confident in ourselves. It sounds hypocritical me saying that when I'm not ultimately confident myself. I'll put my hands up that. But then we just need to find some belief, and like we said earlier on about the management situation, does somebody else coming in, if that was to be the case, get a new manager bounce or some sort of different tune out this team? I'm not too sure, because you're going to have to pick these players up from the bottom of the floor and hope that all of a sudden, you know, they just get their mojo back and they start playing this free flowing football like we saw for Riz's first 7 games. You know, I don't know, Si. It's a big question that I think there's so many different answers you can have, and not one of them probably is the right one.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the moving the manager on at this point, I think it's bizarre in terms of, I saw someone say, "Oh, give it to Ramsey," but in the same sentence they said Omar Reese is too inexperienced and doesn't have a clue how to run a championship football team. And I was like, but on the same hand, you're saying to put someone in charge for the last 4 games who not only doesn't have championship manager experience, has never been a manager or a coach. Like, it's bizarre. Like, the one person I would say is probably worth a gamble if they make that decision, they're going to change it. Is Neil Warnock, because he's the sort of guy who can get people on side very quickly in terms of the players and convince them to just give it everything for 4 games. I think he's the one guy that I would maybe, if I was in their situation, could contemplate, because I just think 4 games is just not enough time to suddenly turn it all around.
Time. Yeah, and again, like, desperation makes you do silly things that you probably wouldn't do naturally when you were less pressurized. You know, again, we all point our fingers at who's to blame, what's to blame, and what have you, and everyone has their opinion. That's why we love football. It's a universal game that's got so many things. But again, like Mike Morgan's just said there, you can't help but point the finger to the top if these, like I said about the reports from Paolo Bantiano and various other journalists today on Twitter that said that they've got very good evidence to say that it was Tan that was rejecting these ideas of changing things. Now, that was back in January and back in the first set of international break. Now, I'm not going to stand here and say things could have been different, because we don't know that. But you'd like to think, thought, there was a reason behind keeping Rizza, and there was a plan, etc. Because if we've gone down the river without a plan, then unfortunately, as much as it pains me to say it, you get what you've put in almost.
Yeah,
And again, like I said, this isn't a product that's been 2 years or three. I feel like this has been a product of the last few, 3, 4 seasons, I think.
yeah, mate. Ultimately, you reap what you sow. Um, and if you were going to put in a young, experienced manager, and by the way, I will say there was people like me and others who were saying, let's get a young, progressive manager. Let's be ahead of the time for a change at the start of the season, or like not in the middle of the season necessarily. But so, like on one hand, you could say, well, they tried to do that, but you have to give them the right tools to do the job. And it was clear from day one that having Omar Risa, who's never been a manager at this level, is his first big job, and then the coaching staff being largely inexperienced coaches, some of which you've never coached at first team level, is a big jump up. And then when you look at it and you compare the numbers of coaches compared to the number of coaches, of a full staff elsewhere, it's bizarre. What I would say is I would just like to see us be aggressive and go for it. My biggest criticism of Cardiff this season is the lack of movement off the ball is astounding. Like I've never seen a football team so static. Like just the very first thing you learn as a kid, pass and move, and we'll have it, and everyone stood still. And I think for me, if they just had the movement off the ball and are aggressive in there, going to get a ball back, that on its own would be a massive improvement on what we see, because the press is non-existent. We sit in and try and block the passing lanes and make ourselves compact and all this stuff. And I get that. Like I get you've got to be trying to protect the defense, but ultimately we got to score goals, and we got to find a way to score goals. And the most dangerous we've looked attacking wise all season is when we've been aggressive, moved the ball quickly, and tried to force the issue, as opposed to being passive and negative and just kind of waiting for something to happen. You've got to make it happen now. You've got 4 games to make it happen. Sheffield United are in awful form. Oxford are beatable. You've got to try and take 6 points from them games. There's no other choice.
Again, every game is a must win. Again, like it's hard, isn't it? Because you say, the intensity. Again, does intensity come with you being confident? Does that all tie into the same thing? I don't know. I think you've got to match. Intensity shouldn't. That's a fundamental of football. From minute one, you should be pressing every ball. You should be hungry. You should have that desire. And again, I think we've probably lacked, like you said. I think Omar Riz's way of playing at the start, especially when we saw him play some good football, or his team play good football, was, like you said, high intensity, quick movement and stuff like that. But for some reason, like you said, now it's a lot of fans go move, like you said, and it's frustrating because it's every throw in you seem to be. It's almost like a game of stuck in the mud. Sometimes they're waiting, or like where are they moving? Like we are very predictable. Certain teams, like you said, they press high, they win the ball high, you're in the opposition half, anything can happen. But at the minute, it feels like we're losing the ball in our own half because we can't deal with the opposition threat. And again, desire, hunger, they don't cost anything. You don't have to be a £20,000 a week striker or player to have those. You should, when you're representing a club, whether it's Cardiff City, Manchester United, or whoever, you should be straight. You're in a, let's be brutally honest, you're in a position that many kids would love to be in. They give an arm and a leg or anything they had to be a professional footballer. Please leave it all out on the pitch. Press every ball, kick every ball, head every ball, and see where it's at.
Yeah, I say to my under-16s team every week, you're the better football team in terms of your individual technical ability, but you have to earn the right to play that football by working harder than the opposition. Because no matter who you're playing against, if they work harder than you and they run more than you and they are more aggressive than you, you won't get the opportunity to show how good you are at football. And that intensity is lacking massively, mate. But that's been, it's not like it's just always, it was only yesterday we have been lacking intensity. We've lacked intensity pretty much all season.
There's games like I know it sounds, I'm probably going to contradict myself to an extent here, but when you're playing against bigger sides, you're not necessarily, again, that quote, isn't it, that phrase that people say, on paper you're not the better side on paper. But what you can do, as like Plymouth showed second half yesterday against Sheffield United, for 90 minutes there's nothing about paper. You're up against your man, and you don't make it pleasant for them. And again, if you win your battles, I think we as fans, especially myself, when I see somebody crunch another player, I don't want them to hurt them by any stretch. I mean, I'm not saying that, but when you see somebody like proper put a crunching tackle in, it lifts everybody. It lifts the players. It lifts the fans. It's a big, it all kind of ties in. But when you see players again, walking around the pitch with their heads, in their hands and stuff, it doesn't set a good tone. And like you said, you've got to earn it. You've got to want it. You've got to have the desire, the hunger, because fans are still, showing up in good numbers. I think there's about 750 at the minute that have been sold for Sheffield United away. Now, if that's the case, that's a pretty good turnout for a club that, let's be brutally honest, up the
Circling the
creek
drain.
again. Yeah, and again, mate, this is a fan base, and I can only speak on the people I speak to, but this is a club which has a good fan base, and over the years it's had a really good fan base. We're a capital city club, and I believe that if this club was taken care of properly from the top to the bottom, from the bottom to the top, whatever way you want to look at it, it could flourish. But for whatever reason, maybe it's the environment, like we said earlier on, things aren't going well. And there has to be a level of accountability for it. And again, like I said, there's no excuses now. We can't use excuses at this time of the season because we've got, what is it? Well, my maths ain't very good. 4 times 9, whatever that is, 360 plus minutes worth of football left. 360 minutes, you've got to leave everything out on that pitch. You've got to represent us, whether you're there in person or not. You need to give everything for that badge, because ultimately, after Norwich away, you don't want to be remembered as the team that got relegated in a historical season.
Yeah, 100%, mate. Well, I just to let people know. So this on Wednesday, I've got Phil Stant, Mark Bowen, and Jack Sharp, who's the head of FAW's domestic football on Wednesday. So we've got a jam-packed show on Wednesday with top-tier guests. But I'm really looking forward to speaking to Phil Stant, obviously the legend that he is, Cardiff legend, and also legend of, as I found out today, legend of the military as well. And a documentary made about him and all the rest. But Phil Stant, we were just chatting like earlier, just sorting out times and whatever. And one thing which struck me with him, he said, modern football has changed from when he used to play for the City and stuff, of course, and the atmospheres have changed with the Ninian Park and Cardiff City Stadium. But he said, do you know what hasn't changed? It's 11v11, and if you win your individual duels versus your opponent, then you're more than likely going to win the football match. And ultimately, maybe that's what this team needs to take the pressure off them is, right, this is the 11. This is going to be the 11, barring injuries, for the next 4 games. Everybody else has got to earn a spot in the 11. You're playing you're up against your opposition. You make sure that when you come away after 90 minutes, you win your battle. And then it's like, do you know what I mean? It's frustrating.
I think we can, again, I say we, but myself, I'll just, again, talk for myself. But I can accept losing, okay? It's never nice to lose by any stretch of the mean. But I can accept losing as long as I've seen the players on that pitch give everything. If they've given everything for, 100 and whatever minutes it may be with the added time, I can accept that. I'll take that. I'll happily take that and say, do you know what? Better side won, hands up. But it's the desire. It's the hunger, it's the effort, it's the application, and we're not seeing it consistently enough. Where we have spells, but we don't have the 90 minutes. And again, like I said, it may be in Sheffield on Friday that we play absolutely terrible for 89 minutes or whatever it may be, and then we go and score. And this is me wishful thinking now, may I add? We score late, and it all is forgotten. It all is forgotten because at the end of the day now, points. That's what we need. We need points, and we need them now. So performances go out the window, but points is what we need. So I think that's where I stand with it. Yes, I can talk till the cows come home or till it gets dark, as you can see. But again, I think every fan is genuinely worried. Where are we going, and what do we have in store for ourselves?
Here's one for you, mate. Right, what would be the most Cardiff thing ever? Is that we go and win the next 4 games, but still go down by a point.
Yeah.
That would be the most Cardiff thing ever. Just suddenly it all clicks, like Ruben or whoever finds a bit of form and we just magic. We beat Sheffield United, we beat West Brom, we beat Oxford, we beat Norwich on the final day. Don't concede another goal. We're just absolutely playing like Brazil, and then we go down by a point. That would be the most Cardiff thing ever, mate.
And yeah, and do you know the funny thing is, like I said, someone said to me, he said that, yesterday, he said it feels like we're a boxer, we're on the ropes, and we're taking punches, and some of them are hurting more than others, but we're still in the fight, but we're not throwing enough punches. It's almost like we could go down on points, which I thought was quite a creative sort of analogy as such. I thought, but it is like you said, is now we naturally we look at the results. I don't think anyone doesn't. I certainly was looking in the concourse before the game yesterday that Plymouth had managed to beat them, and I was thinking, oh my goodness, and like I said, it is a Cardiff City story. It's never always great. It never has been great. We've had some good times, but we've had some bad times that people, like you said, the sort of older fans will have experienced. I haven't experienced that, but I just don't see where we're going to go, and that's my biggest worry is if we do go down, which, like you said, is a very Cardiff City thing we possibly could face. I just don't want to be like up in Norwich, hoping and hoping and hoping, because again, what's the saying? The hope that kills you. Almost, it feels very damning that we'll take that 6 hour travel or whatever it may be up to Norwich, and we'll all be in fancy dress, or people will be in fancy dress, and it's just like, for TV, if you're a neutral, it'd be brilliant. But if you're in that stand or you're at home, you're kicking balls and heading everything, you just don't want to know on the last. You want to know, don't you? Last game of the season, are we up or are we down? And yeah, it's still a long way from being done yet. So we know that, mate. We're still a long way from being done. We're still in it. It ain't over till the fat lady sings by any means. But come on, get some wins, get some points on the board, and start playing. You know what? Like we hope you can play.
Yeah, yeah, 100%, mate. Was that a dig about my age, by the way? Just saying.
Oh no, mate. Hey, listen, you could call it senior, you could call it more mature, whatever term you want to put it. Listen, one thing is watching. You might be
No,
31 years old, but watching Cardiff at times makes you feel a bit older. I think it's like I
I
said,
wish I
is
was 31.
the good thing is, I suppose, is you could be watching these teams who are winning every week, right? But how
Yeah, it's
boring is
boring.
that, eh? We
It's
this is a
boring.
Cardiff City roller coaster.
Yeah, it's going to be fun, mate. The next 4 games, right, they will age us all by 5, 10 years, but they will be a lot of fun. I just wanted to answer something in the chat. I know I haven't been as active in the chat today, guys. I am feeling really rough still, so that's why Jamie's like, I'm just throwing everything to Jamie, and I really appreciate him joining me as he's walking home.
It's all right,
But
Si. I'll
Lee
just
said,
talk till the cows come home.
yeah, that's all right, mate. I needed it tonight. He said, was that a real Phil Stant in the chat? Do you know what? They had me for a little bit, but then I text Phil just to check if it was him, and it wasn't him. So there we go. It is where it is. But no, it was all fun. But he's on Wednesday, which I can't wait, mate. He's an absolute legend of a guy. Do you know Mark Bowen will be interesting, mate, as well, mind, because he's had some really interesting coaching experiences, obviously with Wales as well, and Welsh international and the rest of it. But I would just, do you know what, mate? Just lastly, kind of on the playing side of it, I would like us to just go. I do think we need a midfielder who can do a bit of defensive work. I think we can't just go like Ruben, Robertson, and Turnbull, and no sort of any sort of defensive minded midfielders. But I would like us to sort of almost put Manswerk as a 6, and then just say to the rest of them, go and create something. And I'd like to see him get a bit of freedom, mate. Robertson looks frustrated at the moment. Ruben, I thought was good when he came on yesterday, made a difference. Give these players, Ruben, Robertson, Isaac, Kian, whoever it is, like just Will Alves, give them a bit of freedom and say, I don't care what you do, just work hard and get a ball in a box for Salic and Robertson and Mate or whoever's going to play. But I want to see these players giving their absolute everything for 90 minutes. And I want to see us. I need to see some intensity, because I will be so disappointed if the next 4 games mirror the last couple where we just look lacking intensity, lacking urgency, lacking like we're playing like there's 10 games to go rather than 4. I need to see a pickup in urgency, mate.
Yeah, and again, intensity. These are all fundamentals of the game. Hard work, work ethic. We've got what is it, 5 days now in between the next game, so there should be no real excuse for fatigue and anything like that. Because if anything, the Oxford game you'd be more fatigued with 2 games in 3 days, so or 4 days, whatever it is. So again, leave it all out there. Site, like you said, is we. Well, I say we again. I'll talk first person. Is you can accept losing as long as you lose in the right way, in terms of you give it all. You've come
Right.
off there saying, I can't do
Exactly.
any more, I can't give any more. But again, there's probably been too many questions this season, and too many times where we've probably questioned, have they given it their all? And that's why we find ourselves after, what is it, 42, 40, 41, 42 games, whatever it is now. That's why we find ourselves in this position. And again, if we do get this great, great escape that we may be, and absolutely fantastic, we need to seriously and look at that in the summer, and sort of address it, that it doesn't happen again. If we don't, right, what is the plan? How are we gonna build the blocks to rebuild? Because it will be a massive rebuild.
The first signing I want to see in the summer, mate, whether we stay up or go down, first signing I want to see is I want to see someone who's a football person appointed at the football club to run the football side of things. Because
Yeah,
we otherwise we are always going to make the same. We're just going to go round and round in circles forever
yeah,
and ever and ever. And then the clubs, they've never got a plan, and the only way to get a plan and make a plan is to literally, they've got to change. Because the reason we are where we are is because we haven't changed, we haven't fixed, we haven't adapted, we haven't evolved any of the problems that have been there probably for the last 8 years, mate. Really, when did Moody leave? That was probably more than 8 years. But we haven't had anyone since then running the football side of things, and we're paying the price for it season after season. But what's the definition of insanity, mate? It's doing the same thing and expecting different results.
yeah. And again, it can work either way. Again, director football always isn't always the answer by any stretch
No,
of the
no, of
means.
course not.
But you're not going to know it until you've tried it. Maybe that's what we need, is somebody to, like you said, in previous, podcasts and stuff, is people in the right departments doing the right things, which they specialize in.
Yeah.
It doesn't take a rocket scientist to work that out. But again, what will be will be. We just hope that the
Got to win
powers that
football
be,
matches now.
yeah, again, we just hope the powers that be will look at it and go, this is what is needed for us. Because at the minute and over the last few years, we haven't had it. And again, it's not just fans saying it. There have been people, ex-players saying it and questioning it. So we've got to learn, haven't we?
100%, mate. Just a quick question as well, right? Do you ever remember anywhere in football? I was trying to think earlier. A chairman, not a chairman, sorry, an owner who has a board of, like a chairman, chief execs, all these people who basically have got no decision making things, but he doesn't listen to the board. So the board will advise, do this, do that, but the owner doesn't listen to them. I can't remember any football club being run like that, where the owner has a board but doesn't listen to him. It's bizarre, mate. Like,
Maybe
you may as
Man
well change
United.
the board
Yeah.
and have someone you're going to listen to.
Again,
Crazy.
I get, you look at some of the most, let's say, circus of clubs. You look at the Man United now, for example, where owners, and they own something, they have powers and so on. But you would hope that they would have somebody that is, sort of being a guidance for them. If they're not going to listen to it, at the end of the day, they're going to reap what they sow. They're going to get bad results. They're going to have a poor product. And again, maybe that's what we need. Again, I alluded to Paul Bantano's tweet earlier on. It was obvious in his tweet that he'd said there was a disagreement between, that the three people had different ideas. And I'm not saying that's just a Cardiff City thing by any means. That happens at every single
Human nature, isn't it?
football club, because there are going to be disagreements. But at some point, the three or however many people are in a boardroom, whatever it may be, need to come together and agree on something and stick with it. At the minute, it seems like we're stuck with what we've got, which is, as Paul has alluded to, is a tan decision. And that may be fine. That might not be fine. Hopefully, the next 4 games, Oma produces and the players produce brilliant performances and we stay up and we can learn from it. But if we don't, then the fingers are going to be pointed in one direction, aren't they?
Yeah, 100%, mate. We started the show and I said the club's broken, and I stand by that. But what I will say is, because I got accused of being negative last week by someone, so I will say I've got a series out, which first episode was out last week, and it's about rebuilding Cardiff City, and instead of just criticising everything which is wrong, it is points out the things that are probably wrong, but it also suggests fixes and how we can go about making a plan, short, mid, long term. The next episode of that will be out this week. please do check it out and all that good stuff. Cardiff City phone in tomorrow night, where the full inquest will happen with the lads, which will be interesting. And of course, we'll have many other shows. We'll have a show every day, of course. And there's a member show as well next week. Tomorrow. Jamie, as always, mate, it's a genuine pleasure. I will just say before I say bye to Jamie, tomorrow morning I'm doing my first solo show on Newport City Radio at 10 o'clock. So tune in for that. Please do.
Good luck, mate. No, guys,
really
and like I said,
thank you so much, mate.
No, it's all right. And like I said, when skies are grey, skies are grey at the minute, but we love our club. We keep backing them, and fair play to the fans that keep going and whatever. It's not over. Let's keep going, and let's hope that we can get out of this position.
Yeah, 1 point, mate. 1 point is all we behind it from the rally, which is mental still. Even though we said it earlier, they still can't believe that it's only a point. Sheffield United are not in good form, mate. So you got to just get behind the team now and hope that we can just do something magic. And we've got players who can do something individually. And maybe it just takes something a bit special. Something, a 30-yarder or a bit of skill. And then suddenly everyone finds a bit of fight and a bit of confidence. But hopefully we'll see that intensity and that urgency now will kick in, I would like to think. But yeah, it is what it is. The fans will be there, mate, as you well know. So we shall see. Mate, thanks so much. Thank you to everyone who's tuned in, as always. Make sure you tune into the phone in tomorrow. Look out for that series, Newport City Radio in the morning, and all that good stuff. And, of course, Wednesday we've got guests galore. But in the meantime, thank you very much. Cheers, and we'll see you in a bit. Nice.